Okay, in the last video, we looked at how to take the Revit model, prep it for AutoCAD, and then export it out. And in here, we're going to look at bringing this in here and making some changes. So I'm going to go ahead and click Open. And I'm going to find my file that I had from last time, and I'm going to select Open. So here's what will happen is that this is what is kind of brought into the AutoCAD file. And so we can start doing some basic editing. First thing is I want to set up kind of some of my layers. So my layer properties, I can edit some of those things. But here you can kind of see there's the default ones that AutoCAD creates when you bring in the Revit file like that. And so we're going to want actual ones that are kind of tied to our laser cutting process. So I'm going to select layer properties. And from this layer properties menu, I want to select the layer states manager. And from here, I've got this file shared with all of my students. You can go through and select import, and I've got a laser layers file that I can say open. And I do want to restore the states, so that way you'll see all these colors come in. The cut layer is red, engraving is going to be green, scoring is going to be the blue, and then we got one viewport layer, which is a non-plotting layer. So you'll see it's got that little minus sign on the printer or the plot column, so that way that we don't plot that. And so you'll see what I mean when we go to do the last few steps here. So I'm gonna go ahead and close this. What I can do to start changing some things, one, I want to get rid of all of these lines up here that are above this top line. So this line right here would be, if we go all the way across, is the top line of our kind of our building, and I don't really want to have that in there. So all this stuff that's above that line I want to get rid of. Easiest way to do that is with the trim tool. So when I select trim, I can actually click on those lines and get rid of those. So another cool feature of the trim tool is if I hold down my left mouse button, you'll see you get this little dash line here. I can actually go through and hit all this right here at one time. So it'll start picking up what it is that I want to trim. So if I let go of that, it'll trim there. And then some of these other items here. You can also just select each line individually if you prefer, or you can do the little drag through, and that'll get rid of all that. So there's a couple little editing features that, like for example, this right here, you're going to notice at times you might have this little kind of scenario happen where it's like, oh, wait a minute, there's kind of a line that doesn't really match up. So if I want to go through and if I want to get rid of that, I'm just going to delete it. You can also do that if it's like a singular line. Get rid of this little portion. And then I can just select that line, and you're going to see at the end you got a little grip. So if I select it, so that's a click and release, and if I just move it over and then click, I can go through and kind of bridge that gap that's going on and that's working through in that particular scenario. Okay, so some cases like down here I've got a gap. Again, this is kind of creating the outline of the wall. So this is the outer outline. You notice how what's selected, and then there's this one right here that can be selected as well. So you can delete it and it'll do this kind of number. I don't really know if I want to go through the process of extending all those, but if you do, you can always hit the drop down and say extend and then see if it'll let you pick it up, but it doesn't look like it's letting me do that. Sometimes it can be a little funny with these views, so I'm going to hit Control V a couple times, and what I might just do is just like, hey, let's just look and see if I can get this other wall kind of brought in here. I think there we go. If I hit the delete key, it'll do that, or let's see if I can just bring this line over. That looks like that fixed it a little bit, and that kind of goes through and does that. So same kind of thing here. If I look at this, let me see if I can just bring this over. Looks like it wants to separate on that one. Let me see if I can do it on this one. There we go. We'll bring this over. There you go. That kind of fixed it. Not all the time will you go through and have that, but you might. So just little gaps and stuff like that just from where the walls are conjoined. Now this vertical line right here, I do know that I want to change this over to a cut line. So that's going to be where, if you remember in the last video, the separation of the walls. This is the wall that's kind of back a little bit, and then this one is the main wall that we have going on. Now here's the other thing too. Here's that elevation swing line. Now when you notice, when you select this door, it goes through and it selects everything. It's like, okay, well I can't just pick that one line. Well, what I can do is go up here in the modify panel and use the explode command. So it doesn't really cause a great explosion or anything, but it does go through and allow you then to select all the individual lines. And so now I can actually get rid of those elevation swings. So, and I can select any individual line that now shows up in this particular door that I have. So that's the cool thing about it. And then so what I usually do just to go through and make this easier is I'll click and release, and then I'll select everything in a window selection. And I'll just click explode. Doesn't really look like it does a whole lot, but now I've got like several little lines that I can choose from. But what I'll do is I'm just going to go around to prep this. I'm just going to grab my outside lines, and of course I've already got the one line right here that is going to be the cut. And let me zoom in here, make sure I get the right bottom line. Sometimes that can be a little troublesome with patterns that'll show up. I'm going to go ahead and get all of those outside lines, change those to cut lines, and then actually I can go up here and I can say, let's hide this, turn that layer off. And then the rest of it, I know I'm going to score it onto the material. So if I highlight the rest, change this to score, they'll all turn blue. Then I can go through, turn the cut layer back on. Now, if you have a case where, again, this to me, this blue line right here is so close, I would just say, let's just start getting rid of some of that blue line down here at the bottom. So I'm just selecting and then just pressing delete on my keyboard, because sometimes that can cause a little bit of an issue with our laser. So I don't really have any other lines doing that. And now I can go ahead and move to the layout tab. So the layout tab is here in the paper space. And so what we have here is, here's the viewport. So you'll notice it's sized up right to the size of whatever we've got drawn in the model space. So what I want to do is I want to select the outside line of the viewport, and I want to change this to the viewport so that way it's on that non-plotting layer. What that means is it's not going to create this black outline on our paper. So then that way we can go through and keep that there. Now here's the other thing I like to do is if I double left click inside of here, I can actually go through and click on like the top, and it kind of resizes it so that way it's not right on the edge. Now here's the other thing I also like to do. If I double left click outside of this, then I select the viewport. If I hit the little drop down menu, I can choose what scale that I want this to be at. So I'm going to go 1/8 of an inch equals a foot, which is going to fit right in our paper space really well. So if I hit escape, that'll keep from selecting it. Now I'm ready to go through and plot this over to a PDF. So if I go up here to the AutoCAD symbol, I can go to print, select plot, and from here I can go through and I can actually choose like Adobe PDF. And some of the things here, it says what to plot, the layout, it says scale 1:1. If I click the preview, it'll show me what preview it looks like. This looks good. And then I can go ahead and hit this little, if it looks good, then I can go ahead and just say, all right, let's plot it. And it's going to bring up a little option here. I would give this something a little bit more descriptive here. Maybe go through and make sure to put your last name, and then put in like, you know, east elevation or something like that. And that way you know what that is. Press save. And there we go. We are ready to go for the Glowforge. And as we go along. Now, here's one thing that might happen though, is my Adobe PDF did this little number here. So it did go through and rotate this. So what I might do is when I go back, I can also access plot up here, which will bring up the same menu. Is what I might want to do is when they say that, I might just change this over to portrait. And let me change my printer to Adobe PDF. So portrait, we say okay. And I'm going to go ahead and just save over that. We do want to replace it. So now, here we go. Now there's my Adobe PDF with the proper orientation that I'm looking for. So those are the couple items that you might want to go through and take a look at before you get ready. And that's really the process of what you would repeat for the other elevations and for a floor plan in order to get it ready for laser cutting and be able to create a physical model of your Revit design that you've created. So after this, get ready, start gluing up and start getting your model ready, and we will be ready to see all the great architectural marvels that you've been designing.